Oh, hey there.
Oh, hey there.
Welcome to History Buffoons.
I'm Bradley.
I'm Kate, and we are on location for the first time.
This is weird. My phone, when you said, oh, hey there, apparently thought it said, oh, Siri. So let's turn that off, because that's not necessary.
My best friend is graduating tomorrow in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
From her doctorate program.
Yeah.
And we needed to podcast at the same time.
So we figured let's do it all at once.
Yeah. I'm so excited to see her tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure.
And she has been on this academic journey for quite some time.
Well, most academic journeys take a while. So.
Yes, so super proud of her.
Super proud. It's nice that it's coming to an end and she can utilize what she's done and everything. Yeah, she's very very nice person. I'm excited to see her again as well.
Yeah, so. Yeah. So because we're actually we're over the border.
Technically, yes.
Technically in Indiana.
Yeah.
And just over the river is Louisville.
That's how Kate apparently likes to say it, and she's been saying it the whole time.
Okay, so I'm Nebraskan. I say Louisville.
Well, most people say Louisville.
Yeah. But the locals, they say Louisville.
Louisville?
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're having a stroke while they say it.
Yeah, or they got marbles in their mouth.
I mean,
Louisville.
Tomato, but either way.
So we went to a liquor store to see what local craft beers they had.
We did.
And you did pick one, and then I picked something completely different.
Well, I picked the one for you because I've had it before. You've never had it before.
No, and it's not
available near where we live.
It's not available in Wisconsin. And you're going to have to pronounce it for me because I still don't.
You're going to pronounce it first, and then I will correct you.
Yuengling.
What is it?
Yuengling.
Yuengling?
Yuengling.
There it is.
How is Yuengling? Yuengling.
It's not Yuengling, it's Yuengling.
Yuengling. When I think it's Yuengling, it would be Y-I-N-G, not Y-U-E-N.
But it's not. It's Y-U-E-N.
What? Yuengling?
Yes.
Yuengling traditional lager, and I believe it was from Pennsylvania.
Yes, that sounds right. Hershey, Pennsylvania?
Pottsville.
No, Pottsville, that's right.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. They have a, I don't remember if it's a porter or what it is, but they have a one in collaboration with Hershey. It's a chocolate something. I don't remember exactly what it is because, again, we don't get it out by us. They were supposed to partner up with Molson Coors, Miller and Coors.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID hit, and that all kind of went to shit, basically. So I don't know if that's still in the works or not, but they were supposed to expand their distribution because they've been mainly East Coast, up and down, north, south, East Coast, whatever. Because I think you can get it in Florida, not sure. You can get it further north, not exactly sure how far. But it's been trickling its way west over the last few years. I believe it might be available in Illinois now. I'm not sure. Again, I don't know. I've been out of the business for a little bit.
So apparently it is America's oldest brewery?
I believe that's correct. Oldest family or run or something like that.
It says since 1829.
Yeah, which is older than Miller, which is older than Budweiser, all that. So it's been around for a long time. I believe it's still within that family as well. It's been through generations, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But you like lagers. It's a traditional lager. So I said, you should try this one.
All right. What do you got?
I have a Cold Hammer Highball. So the brewery is a Cold Hammer. It's called a Highball. It's a bourbon whiskey with soda water and natural lemon flavor. 7%. But this one is from, where did I say? This is from Indianapolis. Produced by West Fork Whiskey Company in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Very nice.
So very local to the area. There we go.
Mine is a bottle, so it is already open.
I already opened it for her.
But
because,
cheers to you.
Cheers.
Tastes like a traditional lager.
Tastes like weird.
Yeah.
You can taste a little bit of bourbon in it, but I feel like I taste more of the soda water than I want to. I don't taste a ton of lemon. But yeah, so just a little too much soda. It's weird because you get like an initial flavor and then it like bottoms out.
Yeah.
And then it like finishes with maybe a hint of lemon, not very much.
Yeah.
So it's really quite strange.
Huh.
But again, maybe like the beatbox, it'll get better by the third one.
Hey, speaking of beatbox, I was told never to have carbless again.
Speaking of beatbox, no, you've been banned from having carbless ever again.
I was going to try a third time because my colleague, I told her the situation. She's like, no, you have to try the pineapple. And I was like, why didn't you tell me this from the start? I thought you told me to try the traditional, so I did. And she's like, no, the pineapple. I was like,
no. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave all the pineapple to your friend.
Okay.
And you're not going to fucking touch one.
Okay.
Because it's been a disaster every single time.
It has.
That you've tried it. And it's only been twice, and that is 2 times too many for you.
Yes.
So, we're not going to do carbless anymore.
No carbless.
Sorry to carbless. If you sponsor the podcast, we'll change our tune instantly. I'm just kidding. It's just not for everybody. And like you said, you don't like that fake sugar, sweetener or whatever stuff for it. So no, it's just not for you. I know it wouldn't be for me, but no more.
No more.
No more.
So I am also in the middle of a cold.
Under the weather.
So if you hear sniffles or coughing, that is Kate. My apologies.
Yeah, it happens.
Yes. So we're in Indiana. Tomorrow we're gonna go to Kentucky.
Yep.
And you've never been to either.
I've never been this way. No, most of the time when my family traveled, we either went west and drove a lot. I mean, we flew to many places, but drove a lot out to Colorado, whatever. And we only took one trip, as far as I know, really to the East Coast, and we flew. So I've never driven through this. I've never been to Indiana. In my life, I've never been to Kentucky.
And you've never been to Ohio.
Never been to Ohio.
And that is where our story takes place.
Oh, snap.
I know.
Well, look at that. Tie it right into life.
Look at that.
Cheers to that.
So we are going to talk about Phoebe Ann Moses.
Phoebe Ann Moses?
Yes. Her last name has changed throughout the history books.
That seems weird.
Sometimes it's Mosey, Mosey.
Oh, so it might just be a misspelling or something.
Or when people were starting to get married, they like changed it, to make it less immigrant kind of a thing.
Did you ever know anyone who got married that took on, like, I feel like it's more of a South thing, but only because I'm thinking of one person in particular, where the female gets married, they take their husband's name, but then their maiden name becomes their middle name. Have you ever seen that?
No, not quite. I have a friend who her maiden name is already a hyphened name from her parents.
Yeah.
Because her parents were lawyers and they both had kept their names.
Which makes sense.
So hers was hyphened.
And did she hyphen it again?
And then she hyphened it again.
So she has 3 last names?
Because she is a doctor now, an oral surgeon or something now. So she kept her original name as well and hyphened it. Last I heard, it's been a little bit, but
that's fine. It just seems like a lot of names.
Yeah, it's a lot of names.
Hey, paging doctor. Oh, this is too long. Just come here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of names.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 3 last names, so this is my first, middle, and last name.
Brad is
Bradley.
Bradley is a last name?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Alan Bradley. Yeah.
Who?
You're not from Wisconsin, so.
Okay, so Phoebe Ann Moses.
Phoebe Ann Moses or Mosey or whatever iteration you want to come up with.
Exactly. So she was born in August in 1860. Okay. She was born to Jacob and Susan Moses, who were Quakers. And they migrated from Pennsylvania, and they rented a farm in Drake County, Ohio.
Okay.
It's actually right on the Indiana border.
Oh, well, there you go.
I know.
Fancy.
So back then, Jacob Moses, And see, I wrote Mosey in here.
So you don't know which one to use?
So back then, Jacob Moses was the only one bringing home the bacon.
Sure.
He was farming in Willowdell, which is about 14 miles away from where they were living.
Okay.
And he barely made enough money to keep his wife and his 7 kids fed.
Well, maybe he shouldn't have had so many kids.
Yeah.
7 kids.
But they were saving up for some land. But then Jacob ends up dying when Phoebe is 6 years old.
Oh, dear.
So he was on his way back from farming when a blizzard came through.
Just out of nowhere? Just a blizzard? Like, was it winter?
No, it was more like Wizard of Oz and the tornado just kind of showed up.
So the blizzard just showed up?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. So the blizzard came through. He had frostbite. His hands were frozen. He couldn't speak. And he ended up with pneumonia and just didn't recover.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially for 1860, you said?
Yeah. So his wife, Susan, was left with absolutely nothing.
Yep.
And they had to move to a tiny place. And to make things worse, their eldest daughter, Mary Jane, got sick and died of tuberculosis.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So Susan had to sell everything that they owned, even their milk cow, just to cover their bills, right?
Sure.
So Phoebe's mother, Susan, ended up remarrying, and he also died soon after, but they had a baby in between. So she's got this other kid.
She's back to 7?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to try to make ends meet, Susan worked as a nurse at the Drake County Infirmary in Ohio.
Okay.
During 1866 and 1867.
All right.
And it was basically a place for the elderly, orphans, people with mental health issues. And she made about $1.25 a week, which is about $25 a week.
Today?
Today.
That is terrible.
Yeah. So life was tough.
Well, yeah.
Getting out of poverty was tough.
Yeah, still is.
And little Phoebe decided to take her dad's rifle above the fireplace, loaded it up with so much gunpowder, and aimed it outside at a rabbit or a squirrel.
Unknown.
Different accounts.
Fair enough.
Off in the distance, right? Fired. Hit it. Smack dab in the head.
Yeah.
So the gun actually kicked back and she broke her nose.
Oh, Jesus.
But she got some food on the table for her family that day.
Well, yeah, she became a hunter.
Little Miss Phoebe Ann Moses is Annie Oakley.
I was just going to say, it's got to be Annie Oakley.
It's Annie Oakley!
Jesus. You're not excited.
How did you guess that it was Annie Oakley?
Because Phoebe Ann Moses, Annie Oakley. It's really that quite simple.
I thought it was clever.
Well, if you think about it, time frame wise.
If you know of her time frame, I suppose.
And I do. I mean, I don't know much about her. I know of the basic time frame and so on. But, well, we'll get into this when we learn more. But I just put it together. That was my guess, but you beat me to it. So.
Maybe I should just ask you next time, who am I talking about? Anyway, it's Annie Oakley.
Why don't you next time? See if you can guess. Make me guess.
So she was actually called Annie instead of Phoebe.
Right.
Growing up.
Sure.
So Annie was pretty much always her name, but I wanted to throw you off.
Well, I mean,
which didn't work.
If that's her proper name, though, so it makes sense to start with that. So
yeah, so she went by Annie Moses. Okay. So it wasn't enough that Annie would put some food on the table. Susan was still forced to send 8-year-old Annie to live at the infirmary.
Oh, really?
Yes.
She had to actually go live there?
Yes. She actually took another sister with her.
Did you say, how, in the order of children, where is she? Do you know? Because obviously...
I don't recall.
And
I think she was 3rd or 4th from the end.
So basically in the middle.
Yeah, I think she was.
And which one died? The oldest?
The oldest died. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
So Annie and one of her sisters ended up at this infirmary. So there's less mouths to feed, essentially.
Which makes sense.
And she ended up with the superintendent there named Samuel Eddington. and his wife Nancy, and they taught her sewing and decorating, and they were pretty good to her.
Nice.
And then in 1870, they essentially they called it bound her out, but I'm pretty sure
they just
as an
released
orphan.
her?
Yeah. Well, not quite release, but she was quote unquote an orphan. So a family came in and asked to
adopt her,
essentially.
Was their last name Oakley?
No.
Just kidding.
So this local family came in. Adoption is a very, very loose term.
Especially
there wasn't really that kind of thing.
Right.
But they promised her 50 cents a week and schooling, and she was to come help take care of the mother of this family.
Oh, so the mother had issues?
Not really.
Oh.
It was all a ruse.
Oh, okay.
It was a big fat lie.
Really?
Yeah.
I hope you tell us more about that.
Yeah, so the family really wanted a bigger girl so that she could pump water and cook. Annie was only 5 foot.
Wow, really?
She was tiny.
At that time or when she grew up?
Period.
So she was that short even at full growth?
Yes, she was 5 foot and 100 pounds. She was tiny.
Balls, no kidding.
But they took her home, and for 2 years, she was basically a slave to them. Terrible mental and physical abuse, welts on her back.
So can I ask real quick, and I don't know if you probably don't even have this answer. However, why did they want a female that could pump water and stuff? Why wouldn't they get a male?
I think it was because they actually did want some help with the wife.
Okay.
But they just kind of turned it into, you're just going to be a slave.
To do everything.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
And Annie did talk about them making her a slave. She used that terminology, a slave.
Oh, wow.
I was a slave, yeah.
Sure.
And there was even one time the wife threw her outside barefoot in the freezing cold for falling asleep while sewing.
Oh, Jesus.
She was 12 years old.
Yeah, I mean, you fall asleep and you're how old?
39.
Yeah,
and some change.
Well, you're close to the 40s.
Yeah.
And you fall asleep all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
You need your naps.
But Annie actually did write her own autobiography.
She did? Okay.
Although it's kind of a ruse. There's really nothing. There's not a whole lot of fact in there.
No?
No. Everybody pretty much knows that it was all fake stories or embellished stories.
It's a work of fiction.
But Annie only called these 2 people the wolves. She never, ever
called them out
by name. So we actually don't know who these 2 people are.
Couldn't you trace that back somehow, though?
So there is speculation on 2 different families, but it's not clear.
Okay, fair enough.
So she just called them the wolves.
Well, they sounded like it.
But eventually she was able to run away, and she went back to her mother, who had married for a 3rd time.
Oh, geez. Did she have another kid?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, thank God.
And when she returned, she started hunting and selling what she got to hotels and local grocery stores to help pay for the bills.
Okay, can I ask another question before I forget it?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to her sister that went to the infirmary with her?
She ended up getting married, I think, eventually. She came out fine.
Okay, but
yeah.
She didn't get adopted or whatever?
No.
Okay.
No, she came out fine. I think she ended up getting married.
Okay, I was just curious because it's she ran away. And it's what happened to her?
So...
Well, she ran away after she got adopted, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So Annie was paying bills with all these animals that she's catching, right? Mm-hmm. She was able to pay off their $200 mortgage.
Oh, wow.
And she was only 15.
That's impressive.
Mm-hmm. So impressed by her shooting, Mr. Jack Frost...
Is this a Christmas story all of a sudden?
He happened to own a Cincinnati hotel, and he actually had been one to have purchased her game in the past.
Sure.
He arranged for a shooting contest.
Fancy.
It was a man's sport, and shooting contests were a favorite at this time.
Right.
So on Thanksgiving in 1875, she was to face Frank E. Butler.
And she was 15 in 1875, right? You said?
Yes, this
Okay.
is 1875. Yes, she is 15.
Okay.
Yes. And Mr. Butler is an Irish immigrant, and he is a known marksman. He was touring the country, doing shows, and he was known to take on like local competitors.
Okay.
So he bet Frost, the hotel manager, $100.
That's a lot of money at that time. A lot of money.
$100 that he could beat any local sharpshooter.
And so he brought out little.
So Jack
Phoebe.
Frost brought out Annie. So Butler shows up with hundreds of people watching, and out walks this 15-year-old 5-foot girl.
And he's probably like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Carrying this big rifle.
Probably as big as her.
Exactly.
That's funny because, yeah, I mean, that gun couldn't have been much different size than
No.
her. Obviously, lengthwise, but. Damn.
So they took turns shooting like clay pigeons, one after another. Shoot one, shoot two, shoot two.
Sure.
One after another, right? 25th pull comes. Butler missed. But
Gasp.
not Annie.
Hell
She
no.
got it in the bag. She won the match.
So,
I think he was 29 at the time.
oh, the guy, the
Butler.
Butler?
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow.
So Frank Butler always claimed that he had lost the second that he saw her. He actually ended up falling in love with her.
Of course he
He
did.
gave her tickets to his next show.
Ooh.
And as part of his shooting act, he had a French poodle named George, and Annie loved George.
Imagine that.
So Frank's way of wooing her was to send flowers and cards pretending they were from George, like signed. Love George. Woof,
So
woof.
this 29-year-old is courting a 15-year-old?
Yes.
That seems a little bit
And
weird.
they got married the next year.
Oh, I mean,
She was 16.
age of consent, I guess.
But I love their story because it was a man's sport. He was really good at what he does, and she shows him up, and he's like, "Bring it. Let's do this. I
Right.
will support you." And he was really, really sweet to her.
Okay.
So, Annie and Frank finally started performing together in 1882. So, for the next 6 years, Butler and his then shooting partner, John Graham, performed on a variety circuit, and Annie would like stay in the background and just kind of help out when needed.
So basically, since they got married until she turned 22, when she started actually performing with him,
Yeah.
she was kind of helping out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, while in Springfield, Ohio, John Graham, the partner, he ended up falling ill, and Annie stepped in.
Oh.
So she would hold up targets for Butler, but Butler kept missing this day. He just kept missing. And there was a spectator in the crowd who heckled him and said, "Just let the girl shoot then."
And so she did?
So Butler was like,
All right.
"Be my guest. Let's do this." Knowing full well what was going to happen.
He knew she was going to kill it.
Yeah, and so Annie hits the target every single time.
Yep.
And then it became a Butler and Annie bonanza. No more Graham.
Poor Graham.
I know.
Shouldn't have got sick that day, I guess.
But Annie needed a stage name.
Come in Oakley,
She chose Oakley, supposedly after her paternal grandmother,
Okay.
but other sources say it was a town nearby,
Oh.
like the name of a town nearby, and she just kind of pulled it off, you know.
Either way.
Yeah. So when the Butlers hit the road, traveling entertainment was a really big thing.
Oh, yeah. Especially back then. Come on. That was huge. Huge entertainment.
Yeah, there were circuses,
I was just going to say that. Yes.
theater companies, vaudeville.
Yeah. All that stuff that toured around because they could make a killing, really. Because that's that. You couldn't Netflix and chill or whatever the kids say these days. So.
Exactly. So they'd play anywhere from huge arena to tiny smoky bars.
Yeah.
And for Annie and Frank, they loved the noisy trains and the cheap hotels and moving all the time. And so Annie and Frank's shooting act could literally
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did he have a stage name too? Or was it just
No,
Butler?
it was Frank Butler.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Because why did she need a stage name but he didn't?
I don't think it was really something that I read. It was just something that she wanted.
So it wasn't a part of your research?
I was hoping to get away from that.
That's never going away?
So their shooting act could literally be between a singer with dirty jokes and someone with almost no clothes on.
Yeah, that's wild.
These variety shows were a men's thing, so there's lots of innuendo, bit of skin.
Little ankle.
But but Annie Oakley was a Quaker girl from Ohio in the Victorian era.
Were they originally from Pennsylvania, or was that just her parents? Okay.
And she was terrified as being seen as improper.
Sure. No, she wanted to do the right thing.
Exactly. And she decided to make herself different, both in how she acted and dressed.
Presented herself.
Exactly.
Sure.
So she started wearing a full coverage outfit, a calf-length skirt, long sleeves and leggings.
Right.
And that became her signature look. She sewed her own costumes, which was important to her because she wanted to control how people saw her.
Sure.
And she could really move freely in them, and she looked respectable, even a little bit childlike because of how petite she was.
Well, I mean, being only 5 foot and 100 pounds soaking wet, that, you're going to look young because of that, even if you're in your 20s. So,
and Frank found out pretty fast that Annie was the main attraction.
Well, I mean, she was different because, like you said, this was a man's thing.
Yeah.
A lot of men went to these. I'm sure women did too.
Right.
Even kids, for that matter, probably. But this was so different for what they were used to seeing. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to go see that girl shoot because we don't get to see that.
It's different.
It's completely different.
It's a woman shooting. It's not a man shooting.
No, so it totally makes sense why she would become the main attraction over. What's the husband's first name?
Frank.
Jesus, I keep forgetting it. Frank Butler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, nothing against him.
No.
I had nothing against him. It's just this is a newfangled thing. Let's look at this.
And he was so good to her. He became her assistant.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how it just flipped around?
Exactly.
Basically?
Like their traditional gender norms were flipped on its head, and they loved it.
And again, for being in the 1880s, I mean that's wild because that just wasn't a normal thing.
Yeah.
So
he knew that she kind of had that it factor and didn't want to mess with it, and he loved her, and he was also a very smart individual.
Well, it's very marketable.
Exactly. Yes, she was pretty, classy, and he also knew what it took to succeed because he was already successful.
He was doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So in 1884, they got a long-term gig with Sells Brothers Circus, SELLS, Sells. It was a pretty huge deal, and they finally had some steady income with this gig.
Sure.
Circus life was a struggle, and the money was kind of hit or miss.
Yep.
So when their season wrapped up in New Orleans that December, they were looking to go back to those vaudevillian cheap motels and
doing their little sideshows
basically dealing with some of these rougher sexualized characters.
Sure.
But then right as that circus gig ended, Buffalo Bill's Wild West show rolled into town.
Yep. Yeah, I knew that she did for that. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So perfect timing. They asked Cody for a job, William Cody.
Yep.
So Annie was super excited. It seemed like a dream to her. But Cody already had a big named shooter. His name was Captain Bogardus.
Okay.
And he was already a huge star.
Sure.
So he did tell Annie no, it wasn't about her being a woman. They had other women in the show. It's just
they had their thing already. The position's filled.
The position's filled. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
So they did have to go back to their variety circuit then.
Yep.
But then luck changed, and Buffalo Bill's steamboat sank on the Mississippi. It sounds horrible, but Captain Bogardus lost all of his gear and equipment and ended up quitting.
Man, I can't afford to replace this.
Probably.
Wow.
So Frank and Annie heard about this and immediately wired Cody asking for a tryout.
Oh, sure. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Can I also ask another question real quick? You being from Nebraska, have you been to the Buffalo Bill Cody blah 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 museum thing that's in? I'm thinking of the right thing. Maybe not museum, but fuck, where the hell is it? Sarah would know. All right, continue. I'll try and think of it while we're going through this.
I know there was like a pioneer museum that was close to where I lived in Mendon, Nebraska.
How many different places did you live in Nebraska?
It was close to where I lived. I lived in 3 places.
So that's...
Okay.
Anyway.
Bill was hesitant because Annie actually asked for a bit of money.
Well,
and he didn't think this small, petite woman could handle nightly shows.
Why? Because she's petite?
Yeah, I don't know.
Lord.
But he agreed to a test.
Okay.
So while practicing in an empty stadium, Annie noticed a man in a fancy hat watching her.
Oh, fancy hat.
He rushed over, shouting about how great she was and asked for photos. It was Cody's manager, Nate Salisbury. Nope, Salisbury.
Salisbury. I like Salisbury. Oh, that's funny.
It was Cody's manager, Nate Salisbury.
Not Salisbury?
And he hired her right then and there.
He said no questions asked?
Pretty much.
It's like, so she didn't even actually get to do the test. He just hired her?
Well, I mean, she was testing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he was watching her. Yeah, and he was like, oh my God, this is amazing. You're hired. So Buffalo Bill's Wild West show was a huge spectacle. It was part theater, part circus, part rodeo.
Yep.
And it gave people in the rapidly industrializing East a taste of the old frontier in the West, and they loved it.
Oh, yeah, they ate that shit up.
Yes.
Because a lot of those people on the East never got to experience that. So it's like, holy crap, look at this other world that exists out there, but we can't afford to go, but it can come to us. Yeah, they're going to eat that shit up.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it was so not what it was.
Well, the whole idea of like the American ruggedness and the adventure, cowboys and Indians, word at the time.
It's okay to say that. It was how it was phrased.
How it was.
Yeah.
But that whole era was just disappearing. So
yeah, correct.
This Buffalo Bill Wild West show was like a living piece of history.
Yeah, it was keeping the past
and
in
he
the
brought
present.
it to life.
Yeah, basically.
Exactly.
Yep,
so you would see stagecoaches and soldiers and Native Americans and cowboys, horses, cattle, and even buffalo on his stage.
Yep.
And it was crazy, lively version of a Wild West show, and that's where Annie Oakley, this girl from Ohio, started in April 1885. And even though she started small, people loved her. So when Annie would come onto the stage, she wouldn't just walk in. She would practically like skip in, blowing kisses and like having this little persona.
Putting on a show.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. She was this sweet little girl, looking girl with a powerful gun. She started with easy targets, glass balls that exploded with feathers in it.
Okay. So,
I don't know.
So like the feathers would go flying kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
But glass too. So that doesn't seem safe. But whatever.
Well, I mean, it was the 1880s.
They used glass balls a lot.
Them times were wild.
But Frank would toss them up into the air 1, 2, 3 at a time.
She would shoot them.
And she would shoot all of them.
Yeah, that seems even more dangerous now.
Yeah, I know.
The glass is blowing up in there. Hey, everybody, look. Make sure your eyes are open for this glass to fall into it. Yeah, this is a brilliant idea. Let's market this.
She would literally hit all of these glass bulbs before they hit the ground, right?
Right.
She'd go up to 4, 5, 6 bulbs at a time.
Impressive.
Her act got faster and faster. Targets shattering everywhere. She shot with both hands even.
Ooh, ambidextrous.
She was ambidextrous with her shotgun. Upside down, she would fire sideways. She would use a mirror.
Did she ever hold it like a gangster, like in the movies? Sideways?
Like that would be like top heavy kind of a thing. Like
I'm joking.
But one of her famous tricks was splitting a playing card held sideways or shooting through the heart.
Right, yeah. I've actually, I think I've seen a picture or something like that.
Sometimes she would miss on purpose and pout.
To kind of like play it up.
Because obviously she'd always hit her targets, so that was part of her act. So then she would just kind of like, quote unquote, redeem herself. But it was all part of the act.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's funny.
As soon as Annie was getting rave reviews, Cody moved her up in the show. So that season, 150,000 people across America saw something completely new, a woman shooting like a man, but with this sweet, innocent vibe that was a little bit sexy, too.
That's a lot of people for back then.
It was.
To be able to see her. That's crazy.
Yeah. And because she was such an incredible shot, what made her really interesting was how she blended that with the image of like a good American woman.
Right.
And she could be all demure and ladylike, even a little girlish, but also really attractive.
Yeah, and then playful and all that, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And her fame exploded when the Wild West show was on Staten Island in 1886.
Ooh, in New York.
500,000 people went to see the show.
Holy crap. Really?
And Annie became just as famous as Wild Bill himself.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Buffalo
Wow.
Bill. Wild Bill
Hickok.
is Hickok.
Yeah,
My bad. Buffalo
all right.
Bill.
That's all right.
Buffalo Bill Wild West show.
Yeah, I think we screwed that up a couple times maybe, but...
My bad.
That's all right.
Buffalo Bill and Wild Bill are two different bills.
And both from the old-timey
Yes.
time.
So we are talking about Buffalo Bill and his Wild West show.
Do you know where Wild Bill Hickok died?
In Deadwood.
Yeah.
Yes. So the other one is from Deadwood, South Dakota. Yeah. So
Yes.
my bad.
That's all right.
So Frank took over Annie's publicity, playing up the East's obsession with the West.
Sure.
And he called her the girl of the Western Plains, even though she was from Ohio.
But they didn't need to know that.
No.
Just like her name was in Oakley.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a character they built for this show.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes sense.
And then she met Sitting Bull.
Ooh,
Yes.
there you go.
So,
He was pretty famous.
yeah, Sitting Bull saw her rifle skills
Yeah.
and eyesight and thought that she had some kind of a special gift. So he was so impressed with Oakley's skills that he offered her $65
Oh,
for a photograph of him and her together. And that was about over $2,000 today.
I mean, that's pretty good for a photograph.
Yeah. Yeah.
You probably got weird Instagram influencers that charge more.
He gave her the name Little Sure Shot. Little Sure Shot.
There's a really good Beastie Boys song called Sure Shot.
Yeah. Well, that nickname traveled with her wherever she went.
I'm not surprised at that. Especially when you get it from Sitting Bull. That's fantastic.
Yes. So in March 1887, Buffalo Bill's Wild West show took off for London to perform for Queen Victoria's big celebration. Their ship was literally a floating zoo.
I bet it was.
Animals everywhere.
It's kind of like Noah's Ark with
Yes. Yes.
headed to England.
So along on this trip is a new girl,
Oh.
Lillian Smith. She was a 15-year-old sharpshooter from California.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Lillian was good, and Bill Cody put out like a $10,000 challenge to anyone who could beat her. Like, she was that good.
Did Annie take that challenge?
Well, Lillian wasn't exactly shy about her skill.
Okay.
And she was basically bragging to everybody that Annie was in for.
Really?
Yeah. So she was a bit of a wild card. She liked hanging out with the cowboys and wore flashy tops.
Ooh,
saying she was the best. And it really bugged Annie because she's like the demure
She's just
lady.
easygoing too. So
At this time, Annie was 26.
old maid by those standards.
Lillian was 15.
Yeah.
Annie actually started shaving off years of her age
To compete with her?
to stay competitive. Yeah.
That's terrible.
So, during research, her age is just a big jumbled mess. Nobody knows exactly what year she was this age or that because of this.
She was born in 1860, so I feel like we can determine how old she was. So how would she shave years off? Like, hey, I just turned 25, and then like 2 months later, hey, I just turned 25. I mean, how did she do
basically,
that?
So I mean, there were no receipts back then.
Well, obviously, that's the point.
No
so, like,
fact checkers.
How about you just don't fucking tell your age?
I mean, that works too.
Seriously.
But she was tiny. She could get away with it.
Well, exactly. She probably could say she was 15. Like, what was the other one's name now?
Lillian.
Lillian, that's right.
So on May 9th, 1887, the Wild West show premiered in London, and Annie and Lillian were both billed as stars.
Right.
10,000 people were in attendance.
That's a lot of people for back then.
Oscar Wilde was there.
What?
Queen Victoria.
That was wild.
And German Kaiser Wilhelm II.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who basically was involved with like the starting and the ending of World War I.
Yep.
So
how'd that go?
So the Kaiser actually asked Annie to be in the show, and he held out a cigar.
Yeah.
Actually, I think he held it in his hand. He held it in his hand and had Annie like shoot off the ash.
The tip of it or whatever.
Yeah. So whatever.
Whatever.
So the English loved the idea of America as this place of freedom, and
quite different.
The show and Annie kind of represented that. And Annie was especially popular because she was this Wild West girl, but she was also a proper Victorian lady, right?
Yes, correct. And that's probably why they liked her a lot.
Yeah. And Queen Victoria came to see the show, and she called Annie and Lillian over. Okay. And Lillian, of course, showed off her rifle, which really ticked off Annie. Annie really didn't like Lillian and her bragging.
She was bragging, showing off whatever. Where Annie's like, no, just let my work do the
exactly whatever. The talking. Yeah, exactly. So. You're right. Yeah. So then there was a shooting competition in Wimbledon.
Oh. And
all the top American shooters were invited. Lillian Smith bombed.
Really?
She was bad.
Was there any explanation as to why she did so bad?
No, there was not that I had read.
Sure.
There was no really explanation, but
okay.
But Annie showed up and killed it.
Of course, because she's Annie Oakley.
Yeah. So she totally showed up Lillian and became the talk of the town, and some even said she was more popular than Buffalo Bill, like she was back in America.
I mean, I would say.
And Bill didn't even compete.
No?
He's like, no, just let the ladies take it.
Well, I mean, ladies first, I guess, but that's kind of odd for that time that he wouldn't even try.
Except for things got tense between Annie and Buffalo Bill.
How come?
Because she was doing better than him.
Well, again, newfangled thing, shiny new toy, whatever you want to say, whatever weird phrase. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense though, because he was an older guy. I don't know. How old was he when? Did you see any age for him?
If I did, I didn't write it down,
and that's okay.
Yeah,
but older guys, they've seen this shit. They want to. Again, a lot of men go to these things and whatever. They want to see the nice new shiny little, pretty looking, well dressed girl that can shoot the shit out of anything. So yeah. I mean, I get it. The fact that he let him bug him, I guess, product of the times probably.
Yeah.
But either way.
And Annie and Lillian, their rivalry also kind of came to a head.
Yeah.
So a friend of Lillian's went to a publication.
Okay.
And told the newspaper that Lillian was the star.
Oh my God, that's scandalous.
I know.
I mean, okay.
But they removed Annie from the publication, altogether.
So, okay, why the fuck would you, this friend of a person comes to this publication and be like, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, she's the real star. Why would they just take that for, oh my God, you're right. We should remove this person completely. Because
they're
fucking stupid.
They didn't care about slander and libel and fact checking and.
Well, that's like our media today.
So, because of this publication, it caused a rift.
Of course, as it should have, honestly.
Frank, her husband, and Nate Salisbury, the manager.
Yeah.
They defended Annie, but Buffalo Bill stayed silent. So
he just didn't want to be a part of it, basically.
Yes. But Annie reportedly toned down her act to avoid overshadowing Cody at this time. She
was trying not to
step on his toes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
So come that October, she decided to leave the show, and returned to vaudeville, essentially, the variety shows.
So they went back to the nothing.
Yes.
That's got to be tough after being in the limelight.
And they were together for like 2.5 years.
Yeah, I mean, quite a long time for a lot of touring, all that, whatever.
And so when people asked Annie, like, what happened between you and Bill Cody, she would simply say, the reasons were too long to explain.
I'm going to start using that.
She literally, like, didn't talk about anybody behind their back. Like,
no.
Oh, nope, it's just too long to explain.
Is what it is. Yep. No, I get that. I mean, she did the very diplomatic, whatever word you want to throw in there, kind of way to do it. So
in 1888, she and Frank tried vaudeville, but audience wanted more singers and dancers, not shooters.
Sure.
Annie worked for other Wild West shows, but Nate Salisbury, the manager, was reportedly threatening anyone who tried to hire her because he wanted her back.
Oh, well, that's a dick move, though, because, I mean, that just fucked her.
Yes, but she ended up coming back.
Oh, dear.
She came back in 1889.
Okay.
And essentially they said that the past issues were resolved. Like it was okay, whatever.
Says you.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah. So she returned to Buffalo Bill's Wild West show in Paris.
Oh, so
she was invited to Paris.
Were they were already over there?
Yes.
This is obviously not the same time as they were over there prior, right? This is a second time over to London.
Correct.
Okay. And so she joined the crew again.
Yes.
Already over there. Okay.
And what could have been part of the deal for Annie to accept this was that Lillian Smith was not invited.
How come? This was not part of your research.
What?
How come she wasn't invited?
Because Annie and Lillian had a rivalry.
I get that.
So it's speculated in the research that I read. It's speculated
they didn't invite Lillian because they invited Annie back,
and Annie said, "Don't invite Lillian, and then I'll come back."
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
do we ever find out what happened to Lillian?
No,
because that's not part of your research.
Exactly. I don't give a shit.
I didn't ask that. Just so you're aware.
So, over 30 million people attended this Paris expedition.
30 million?
Exposition.
Did you say 30 million?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
That is a lot of people. I mean, that's half of the population of Europe when the Black Death killed them.
That's right.
Remember that?
Look at you.
I know.
This is over a course of time.
I get that.
Thank you.
Just bringing it back. Referencing old podcast episodes. Stay tuned. History Buffoons. What up?
So, Annie became a sensation.
Again.
She received offers, and she had fictional stories spread about her.
Sure.
Dime novels, exaggerate.
Can you try that one more time?
Nope.
Exacerbated?
Nope. Exaggerated. There is the word.
Wow.
Exaggerated her past.
That is a tough word.
Yes.
Can you spell it real quick?
No.
Okay. And go.
So.
Yes, so.
Her legend grew.
Oh, dear. Legend.
With stories of her saving a prince, shooting a cigarette from Prince Wilhelm's mouth when, in fact, he held it in his hand. So she and Frank started telling tall stories publicly.
Sure. I mean, just to build the mystique and all that.
Yeah, and part of her autobiography is all of these tall tales.
That's what you're saying,
tales.
yeah. Yep.
So in 1893, Buffalo Bill's show, despite not being invited to the Chicago World Fair, they were across the street and drew bigger crowds than the World Fair.
Well, yeah, because they're more popular. I mean, that World's Fair was popular, too. I mean, all the World's Fair really... They don't do those anymore, right?
No.
And I don't remember what the last one was, because, I mean, that's why the Eiffel Tower was built. For the World's Fair in Paris, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We'll have to do a episode on that.
Yeah. We should do World's Fair, just like of the history of that or something.
Yeah. So 1893 was when people started really missing the Wild West, and Buffalo Bill's show became the symbol of the good old days.
Yep.
The Chicago Exposition was all about new tech, electrical lighting, and Edison's early movies.
Yes.
In 1894, Edison filmed Annie.
Oh, really?
He filmed Annie.
Okay.
And you can see it on YouTube.
Oh, they actually
It's like 25 or 26 seconds long, so I'll have it in our social media. But she's potentially like one of the first people on like rolling film.
Is it pretty grainy?
Yes, but you can clearly see
A person.
someone is like tossing up
something.
clay pigeons or something, and she's like
shooting it.
shoot. Oh yeah, shoot.
That's
like
awesome.
Yeah, round by round by round. It was
the first viral video.
It could have been.
I mean, no, but yes.
So with these movies coming out, that was pretty much a sign that the Wild West shows were on their way out.
Well, they were dying because they didn't need that anymore. They could go a different medium, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the early 1900s, movies would be like the new Western entertainment.
Yep.
But in the 1890s, Annie and Buffalo Bill were still huge, playing in tons of cities.
Oh, I bet.
In 1901, they were all on like a train convoy.
Okay.
There was like a first train, second train, third train. I don't know if they were cars or individual trains.
Oh, sure.
But there was a train coming from the other direction who like split off knowing that the train was coming.
Yeah.
But he thought it was only the one.
Oh, shit.
And so he came back onto the main track and hit the train that Annie was on.
Did she die?
No. That train crash killed most of their animals.
Oh, shit, really?
Like over 100 horses.
Holy balls.
Yeah, like it was awful. No person died, but there were plenty of injuries.
That is wild that no person died, but all those animals did. That's crazy.
Annie had a bad back after that. She had surgery on it like 6 times after that incident. Yeah.
Oh, could you imagine getting surgery on your back in 1890s?
6 different times.
I mean, I couldn't imagine doing that now, and it's 2025, let alone 1890. Holy fuck, no, thank you.
Yeah, and so she decided to leave the show, but
no, you said 1901. I'm sorry.
1901, yeah.
Yeah, either way, early 1900s.
Yeah,
fuck that.
Yeah, and so she decided to leave the show, but even after just 1 year, she tried to get back into the spotlight, and she agreed to be in a play.
Oh dear.
So she left the Wild West show, and now she's trying to be an actress.
Okay.
So the play was written about her. It was fictional, but Western heroine performing her shooting tricks. Mm-hmm.
Just keep in mind, her book was also fiction too.
Yeah, but she was 42 and she wanted a new career.
Sure, she's different avenue stream. Yeah.
Yeah. So on August 11th...
Revenue stream.
August 11th, 1903.
Okay.
Headlines appeared. Chicago newspapers, a man named Hearst in particular, reported she'd stolen pants to buy cocaine.
What?
I don't know.
So they're accusing Annie Oakley of
stealing
pants to buy cocaine with.
Yes. I don't know how that works, but that's what it was.
Fucking wild.
And the Associated Press spread the story, devastating Annie.
Oh,
she had worked hard to maintain her reputation.
Well, sure.
So obviously the story was false. The woman that they arrested was an Annie Oakley impersonator.
See, and that's the problem with obviously media, whether it's today or back then. Obviously different problems today than back then. Fucking impersonator, and they just blame the real one. Oh, you're fucking idiots.
And the damage was done.
Well, that's the problem, because even though it wasn't true, it was this impersonator. Nobody fucking cares, especially back in 1901 or 1903.
If Annie Oakley stole pants, then Annie Oakley stole pants.
As far as anyone's concerned, doesn't matter, because even if the next thing is written, it doesn't matter. They saw the first thing. So that is wild.
And she knew that this would destroy her. So She was personally insulted, but she was also a savvy businesswoman.
Right.
And knew the potential cost and was willing to fight to clear her name.
Sure.
So she sent out telegrams demanding the papers retract the story. So, most of them did and apologized.
Okay.
But it wasn't enough.
Of course.
She sued every single paper that ran that story.
And I'm sure there was quite a few still.
Yeah.
Do you have a number?
55.
Holy balls. How much did you sue each one for?
I don't know the exact number, but I do have something at the end.
Okay.
So she did spend her own money on lawyers to fight this. And she spent 6 years suing these 55 papers.
Wow. That's a lot of years.
Mm-hmm. I mean, she worked hard to build her reputation. She wasn't going to let somebody strip it away in just a fucking
blink of an eye, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Especially when it's just a fucking impersonator. And they're like, nope, it's the real one. Let's slander her fucking name. It's like, do some fucking journalistic research, you dumb fucks. I mean, it's kind of horseshit that, this is Annie Oakley.
Yeah.
Let's print it.
Yeah.
Don't even put it to the editor. Just fucking run with it.
The newspaper Mongol Hearst.
Mongol. Wait, what? What's his first name?
Hearst. I don't know his first name. It was Hearst. It was his name, but he owned one of the Chicago papers.
But what's the Mongol?
Mongol?
Yeah, what do you...
The tycoon? A tycoon?
Is that his first name?
No.
It's his last name?
It's an adjective. Like a tycoon?
Oh, okay. I guess I've never really heard that.
Shit, now I gotta find out.
Oh, it's okay. Let's just run with it. Let's make it a new one.
Yeah, Mongol.
Mongoloid?
Apparently Mongol is a supervillain. In DC Comics.
Is he really?
Yup. Okay.
All right.
Did I just make something up?
I'm hoping so.
Because I thought it meant actual something.
It's okay.
Or Mogul. Maybe it's Mogul. Maybe there's no N. That's it.
I mean, a mogul.
It's a mogul, not a Mongol. A mogul is an important or powerful person, especially in the motion picture or media industry.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know.
We got there.
Mongol.
Hey, I learned something new, folks.
I don't know. That might be the front runner for the episode title. Right?
Mongol or Mogul?
Mongol.
Oh my gosh. That
was pretty great.
So Hearst tried to dig up dirt on her. Couldn't find a freaking thing.
Of course not.
Because she's lovely. She's a lovely person.
She's a good little two shoes, persona.
But not in a bad
I'm not saying, I know. That's why as soon as I said it, I'm like, that's the wrong context. Because no, it wasn't in a bad way. She was just... she was a good person.
She was a good person.
And she, would fabricate some stories for her persona, whatever. But so what? Look at all the people that do today. I mean, so what?
So Annie prepared for each trial, treating the courtroom like her own stage. Yeah. She denied everything.
Right.
And she presented herself as a respectable lady.
Sure.
She was super careful in court.
Right.
She dressed in black.
Oh.
She wore some small diamond earrings with her hair up. She corrected false statements, and she was all about courtesy.
Okay.
And when asked how the article affected her, she said that she felt like she could never perform again.
Well, right, because her brand is tarnished.
The jury sided with her. She won 54 out of 55 cases.
Did it say why she didn't win the 55th one?
No. But... Hearst, the Mogul, Hearst.
The Mongol?
He had to pay $27,000.
To her?
To her.
Good.
Every other thing was like less. That was like the biggest.
Sure.
But after paying all of her lawyers, she actually lost money.
I mean, that's usually how it works. Even today, that's
but she got her name cleared, right?
Unless you don't have to pay unless they win. And then you still lose money.
So, with the lawsuits finally over,
yeah.
Annie's 50 at this time. She went back to the Wild West show.
Again.
She was still drawing in major crowds, but her popularity started to wane because,
Sure.
I mean, the times were changing.
Well, right.
And by 1910, she was kind of seen as like a throwback, a way back, you know.
Well, I mean, she is 50. I mean, that's like 20 years over to life expectancy back then. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's more like, no, that's something that happened back in the day.
Well, yeah, because even though, I mean, she's born in 1860. This is 1910, 50 years ago. So she started, 35 years prior. That's a long fucking time.
And movies were taking over, so like
100%. Because
shooting wasn't necessary.
No, it wasn't the gimmick it was at the time when it was they made it popular because let's go to the theater and see this movie in silence. So
she retired in 1913.
So she would have been 53. Okay.
But she wasn't really cut out for staying at home.
For retirement?
Yeah, Frank joked that she was actually a terrible housekeeper.
So did she go be a Walmart greeter?
What?
That's what a lot of people do.
They sold their house and they ended up just traveling. And they shot and they hunt and they did shows and whatever else.
Sure.
So Annie didn't exactly disappear. And she also used her fame to encourage women to be active and taught tons of women how to shoot.
Sure.
And she was a big believer in women using guns for self-defense, saying that they should have them at home and carry them when they're out and about and alone.
Yep.
And even showed them how to hide a gun under an umbrella.
Oh, who doesn't know that?
So even when she retired, Annie was a mix of being a strong woman and a proper lady. And she offered to lead sharpshooters in the war as well, World War I.
Right.
And after World War I broke out, Annie said, if I would have shot the Kaiser way back when, I might have saved the lives of several million soldiers.
Isn't that messed up?
Yeah. So after World War I broke out, Annie said, if I shot the Kaiser, I might have saved the lives of several million soldiers.
Which is wild.
I didn't know then that he would swing the iron fist and shake the universe.
Okay.
Perhaps it was well for both of us that humans lack foresight. According to Frank Butler, he sat down and wrote a letter to Kaiser Wilhelm saying that Annie Oakley wanted to repeat the shot. And the Kaiser never replied.
Because he's like, she's going to assassinate me. Oh, dear. That's kind of cool.
So in 1922, she did a charity show.
Oh, charity.
But then she had a car accident after that.
She had a car? She was rich.
Yeah, she had a car accident.
Okay.
And it left her with lasting injuries.
Oh, sure.
She actually did melt down a lot of her medals and she donated the money. So she's kind of like putting her affairs in order.
Just the medals that she won through competitions and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
At
crazy.
66, she was kind of weakening. There was some speculation that she was suffering from some lead poisoning with all the shot that she had over the years.
Especially back then. I could see that. Putting them, even if she put a bullet in her mouth for a second or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
So she ended up dying in her sleep on November 3rd, 1926. Oh. And at the time, Frank Butler wasn't at home. Oh. They have spent all this time together.
And he missed out on her dying?
And he wasn't home when she died.
That's sad.
He was so distraught by her death that he stopped eating. And he died 18 days later in Michigan.
It happens a lot. But they were together for a long time. I mean...
It was said 50 years, so...
Well, so
I didn't do the math.
She died when?
1926.
So she would have been 66. He was 14 years older than her when they started courting and all that. So he would have been, you said 66 for her? Right?
Yeah, and they married in 76.
Yes, because she would have been 16. Yeah. So, I mean, so he probably would have been 30 at the time?
29, I think is what they said. So, yeah.
I thought that's when they went. Either way, 29,
Sorry, 30. You're right, 30.
Doesn't matter. 14 years, basically. So he would have been 80 years old.
Yeah.
So that's wild that he made it to 80 and she died at 66.
Yeah.
He wasn't even there to see her
go.
I know.
That's
sad.
But she was cremated and he was buried next to her ashes in Greenville, Ohio.
Oh.
So
okay.
There is a vast collection of Annie's personal possessions, performance memorabilia, and firearms on a permanent exhibit in the Garst Museum and the National Annie Oakley Center in Greenville, Ohio.
Okay.
She has been inducted into the Trap Shooting Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's cool.
The National Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame in Fort Worth, Texas.
That's funny.
The National Women's Hall of Fame, the Ohio Women's Hall of Fame, and randomly New Jersey's Hall of Fame.
What? Really?
I don't know.
Okay.
But that is the story of Phoebe Ann Moses, a.k.a. Annie Oakley.
A.k.a. Phoebe Ann Mosey.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, as soon as you, we're starting to say the time frame, Phoebe Ann, I'm like, oh, this is Annie Oakley. I could just tell, and which is awesome because I didn't know a lot about her.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've known of her, of course, and especially with the. I don't want to mix up like you did for the Wild Bill Hickok and the Buffalo Bill Cody. See, and that's what I was probably messing up with the Nebraska thing. I know I'm thinking of something. I'm pretty sure it's in Nebraska. Sarah would probably remember. I don't remember off the top of my head. I've had a couple beverages. But anyways, no, that's wild. I didn't realize that. I knew she was very popular. Didn't know how it progressed the way it did. And I mean, basically it was her skill came out of a necessity, which was providing for the family kind of thing. So that's pretty wild that she had to, hey, we want to eat. Let me go shoot this squirrel or whatever animal is in front of me kind of thing. So
she kind of gets mixed up a little bit with Calamity Jane.
Oh, sure. Calamity Jane was a fucking drunk.
She was actually she was in Missouri,
yeah,
and South Dakota.
Yes, because she was in Deadwood, not just because of the show, but I believe she actually was in Deadwood.
Yes,
because she was friends with Wild Bill Hickok.
Yes. So people think there's a little bit of overlap, but there's really not.
No, there really isn't.
They were kind of around the same time frame.
Just confusion, I think.
But yes, I mean it's all the quote unquote Wild West.
Yes.
But Annie Oakley was Ohio. Calamity Jane was South Dakota.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So I just want to make that clear.
Annie Oakley, prim, proper
Calamity
persona?
Jane? No.
Drunkard?
Not so much.
Not so much.
Maybe we'll do an episode on her. Stay tuned for a future episode.
We should go to Deadwood and do that.
I absolutely want to go to Deadwood and do that.
I would love to.
Let's do that.
I haven't been.
Do you think my friend would skip her walk at graduation tomorrow?
So we can go do that?
So we can go to Deadwood?
We can stop by and pick up the third microphone and she can be on the podcast.
Let's do that.
That sounds way better than walking for graduation.
It does. No, I'm here for her.
Of course we're here for her. That's why we're doing this.
Okay, so between this whole episode, I've had to pause to cough and stuff like that and sniff and whatever. Sniff? I had the sniffles is what I meant.
Sounded weird, but yes.
Cough and sniffles and blow my nose. And while that, he got up to get several more alcoholic beverages. So you are now 3 in.
Out of to the
my 2/3 of this Yingling.
Like I thought.
How are you? Yes, how is it?
It got better as I drank more, like most alcoholic beverages do. The initial flavor is okay. I'm not gonna say great, but it drops off with that.
The seltzer?
The soda water, they call it on this one. It drops off. So I don't know. I'm not a huge soda water kind of guy. I like tonic, which to me is way different. Not so much, because soda water to me is more like club soda. I could be wrong, but no, it got better as I drank more. This fourth one will probably be amazing.
I liked my Yingling.
It's very basic. It's a beer.
There's not a ton of flavor to it.
It's a beer.
But I could easily drink this.
When I sold beer, I had this account, and it was a liquor store, but he had a bar upstairs. And I got to know the bartender, and then he built a new store. He moved over, whatever. anyways, Thad, very nice guy. I remember it was at the original place. I like pale ales, you know that. I like IPAs, all that, the hazies, all that stuff. I'm not a huge lager fan. I don't remember which beer we were talking about at the time, but I'm like, yeah, I don't really like lagers. He's like, oh, so you don't like beer flavored beer? I'm like, no, I don't, I guess. Because that's traditionally what a beer is supposed to be like if you boil it down. Obviously, many, many years ago. Lots of variations now, blah, blah, blah. But no, I like lagers. I like Modelo. I mean, you love Modelo, but for what that is, not like it's not going to blow you out of the water.
There's definitely not much to it.
No, it's just a beer, literally just a beer. So I knew it wasn't going to be anything like to knock your socks off.
No, but I hadn't tried it, and like you said, it's the oldest brewery apparently
in the United States.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah.
So I wanted you to try it because again, we don't get it out by us.
Yeah.
Eventually we will. It will eventually make its way to Wisconsin, I think. But we happened to be here. I saw it. I'm like, you got to at least try it because you've never had it before. And we were trying to go for something, and that's why I got mine from, what did I say, Indianapolis it's from?
Yes.
Yes. Since we're on location, which we don't get to do very often, besides either the pod loft or your place, we wanted to try something more-ish local, which I understand yours is technically not local to where we are, but we also can't get it where we're from. Yeah. So, no, I enjoyed mine once I drank more of them. And I'm glad you again, you didn't hate it.
No, it's fine.
It's nothing phenomenal. It's a beer.
Cheese sticks.
You have cheese sticks.
Sorry. Squirrel. I have cheese sticks next to me.
Welp.
I suppose I'm going to eat some cheese sticks.
All right, buffoons. That's it for today's episode.
Buckle up because we've got another historical adventure waiting for you next time. Feeling hungry for more buffoonery? Or maybe you have a burning question or a wild historical theory for us to explore?
Hit us up on social media. We're History Buffoons Podcast on YouTube, X, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also email us at historybuffoonspodcast@gmail.com. We are Bradley and Kate. Music by Corey Akers.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts and turn those notifications on to stay in the loop.
Until next time, stay curious and don't forget to rate and review us.
Remember, the buffoonery never stops.